Hello, people. My glasses are dirty. Well, it's the 79-year anniversary of D-Day, the Normandy landings. Next year, I'm going to do a 10-minute study via blog site, but I want to wait till 80 because I like that. That's a nice round number. So this is going to be a real quick overview, and I mean literally very quick overview and recommendation of books about the subject. I think I got too many books, but actually, that might even be, well, that's a lot of books. But anyway, as my notes, because I had to write this stuff down, indeed, I would love to go to Normandy. Normandy would be kind of cool and very interesting to visit. One of the few places in France I'd like to visit that has any World War II historical things to it. I complain about this chair almost at every video. Anyway, Operation Neptune was the amphibious assault. I mean, everybody knows it as D-Day or Operation Overlord, but Operation Neptune was the actual amphibious assault from all those ships. There were a lot of ships out there, not to mention British and American, well, mostly them. But anyway, I mean, Operation Overlord is the actual beachhead, the actual fighting on the beach to get past the beachhead. But yeah, so I do have this is a good book. Saying Operation Neptune, blah blah. He's a good author. I have read a lot of his books. They're very good. I like them. And this is basically what I'm saying about Operation Neptune, Operation Overlord. It's excellent. I like this book. I've read a lot of his books on the Civil War too. I mean, the belligerents. I am reading this. I'm sorry. I wrote this stuff down because I'm not going to remember all these names. I'm just not. I mean, the major belligerent for the Germans were the Germans. And if I remember correctly, I think there were other nations that they, forced into service, like the Russians, I believe, and the Poles, if I remember correctly. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe so. On the Allied side, it was, of course, the three major ones, the US, the UK, and Canada. But a lot of those also UK troops were probably Commonwealth troops, which is why I think this list is the way it is. And there are also other European forces. There's France, of course, the resistance. There is the French resistance that fought behind the lines, sabotaging and everything else it was doing. The French resistance doesn't get enough credit. Because the French people did not surrender. The government did. I mean, I know the French are always, given a hard time about surrendering, but they didn't. The government did. The army did. The army was made to surrender, which really annoyed Charles. I'm full of myself, de Gaulle. He was fascinating. He was tall. The Australians, at the time it was Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. There's the Czech Republic, and there's the Slovak Republic. I think it's the Czech Republic. I think not the Czech, but I don't think the other one's a republic. I think. But anyway, Poland. There's the Belgians, the Netherlands, Norway, New Zealand, Greece, South Africa. But the major Allied forces were the Americans, the British, and the Canadians. Anyway, the U.S., well, I have it written down. I haven't got so much written down, but hopefully I can show this on the screen. But the U.S. was Omaha and Utah beaches, and I had this marked down. Now I can't find it. But anyway, I mean, the movie The Longest Day is not bad. It has a historic offs, but that's because I think in a lot of ways it's not so much telling you the story of individuals, more or less that it was a perspective of different people. I mean, some of the names are true, of course. I mean, Eisenhower and Bradley and Monty and some of the generals and this, that, and the other, and the Red Button's character trapped on the church spiral got shot at. That's still there, by the way. That actually did happen. Trying to follow my map. Well, here's the overall assault. See, there's Omaha. I don't think you can see that very well, but let's see if I get close enough you can see it. There you go. Omaha, Utah, Juno, Gold, Sword. The last three are the British, when the British landed. Sorry, next time I will do better on my maps. Where? Oh, no, where is it? Oh, there it is. Yeah, the American beaches. You see that? I mean, the armed groups. That's Utah and Omaha. But, and the British / their allies, I should say, or the Commonwealth troops, I should say. Yeah, there it is. It's a little smaller map, but hopefully I can show it better. But you can see, yeah, it's a little more complicated than it looks on the map, believe me. And they were attacking a very fortified, entrenched German army with bunkers and landmines and tank traps, and Rommel knew what was coming. He knew what was coming. And he really wanted a lot more mines that were actually there. There should have been, or else we wouldn't have made it. But anyway, there was over 5,000 landing craft, 160,000 troops. Of those, on the first day, 4,000... I wrote it down somewhere. Okay, 4,414 were killed on the first day on Battle of Normandy on the U.S. side. That's just the U.S. side. Overall casualties, killed, wounded, or missing, was 10,000. That's a lot of people. I mean, it almost failed. It almost didn't work. It almost failed, and it would have failed if they had listened to Rommel a little better. It probably would have failed. Okay, those are the basic notes. Hopefully, I didn't confuse too many people. Some of the books I would recommend, of course, it's the classic one, The Longest Day, based on the movie, of course. But this one is the good. This one is probably certainly one of the better ones. Certainly one of the classic ones of reading about D-Day. I like it. I always have. I read it when I first discovered it, which would have been 40 odd years ago. You've seen the movie Longest Day. You've seen Henry Fonda. This is who he plays. This is who Theodore Roosevelt Jr. was. And sadly, he dies of a heart attack about a month later, in July of 44, of course. But yeah, that was Henry Fonda's character in the movie. It's a good book. I haven't read it yet, but it's probably good. Most books I keep are good. Then there's June 6th, 1944, The Voices of D-Day. Talks about both sides, which I think is always important to hear the other side, hear the other side's experiences during the war, whether they were the Germans or the Americans or whomever, Japanese. It doesn't matter to me. I think both sides have something to say. This is a good book. Read this one. This is good. As I said, I like hearing both sides, so I did have this book. I haven't read this one yet, but it comes from a pretty good series of the Library of World War II Library. Sorry. But it's not a good book. Beyond the Beach. I collect books, people. If I see a book I think it's interesting, I'm gonna buy it. The Beach Beyond the Beach, the 29th Infantry Division in Normandy. There's a far more famous book about the D-Day landings, Max Hastings. Always a good author. Always a good author. I'm running out of room over here. Another excellent author. This, let's see. The armies of 6 nations met on the battlefields of Normandy. What would be the greatest Allied achievement of World War II? With dramatic power drive, John Keegan describes the massive armies. American, Canadian, English, German, Polish, and French. At excessive stages of the invasion. Well, it was quite an undertaking, and it could have failed. There was no guarantees it was going to win, because they really were up against whether they did what Rommel wanted or not. What they managed to do was a miracle, because it should have failed. Logistically, it was a nightmare. And war, it was a nightmare. They had Fortress Europe was a fortress. Yeah. Anyway, But then there's my Anthony Bieber book, another good author. I like his books. Another one on D-Day. Another one worth reading. A lot of these authors I've heard of, so I know their books are good. Some of them I like the subject. But today is the 79th anniversary of D-Day. Next year on the 80th, I'm going to try to write a 10-minute study. I need a haircut. It's going to look like George Schools. I know I don't believe in aliens, but I do look like them. I do need a haircut. But the D-Day invasion could have failed, should have failed. Rommel was correct. Rommel was actually, it's funny. June 6th is Rommel's wife's birthday, so that should have been a clue. But they actually thought it was going to be in the south, in the Port of Calais. They didn't really believe it was Normandy at first. I mean, the movie, I'll go back to the movie. The movie is actually good. Just remember that you're watching a composite idea of certain events, certain people. Certain people are actually portrayed as they are, or were. I don't think most of them are alive anymore. They could be. It's a good movie. Just remember you're not watching pure history, not 100% history, but it's there to tell a story about sacrifice, heroism, bravery, cowardice, so on as mistakes, lots of mistakes. I mean, yeah, they made a lot of mistakes. The Americans, the Canadians, the French, and all the people fighting on the Allied side. It could have been a lot worse. I mean, they won, of course, but they lost a lot of men that first day. I mean, the Allies lost over 4,000 men. That's a lot of people to die in one day. But those are the books I recommend. I'm already above my 10-minute mark, so I don't want to go too far. But hopefully this is interesting to some of you. Leave comments, subscribe, share, like. Behave yourselves, people, because I'm not going to. But hope you enjoy this. Hopefully I wasn't too boring, too rambly. I still got to learn how to talk slower.